Hello there, welcome again to TGM's Legal Nugget. And as you know, if you've been following us, we've been talking about landlord tenancy matters in Nigeria, and we've addressed quite a couple of questions. We've thrown light and illuminated those areas to your understanding. Now, we want to address a new question today. And what is that question? Now, that question is, can a landlord evict a tenant by force, lock the house, remove doors, or seize properties? Can a landlord evict a tenant by force, lock the house, remove doors, or seize properties? Now, quite unfortunately, this because of what some landlords term the stubbornness of tenants in their property. They tend to resort to some of these acts, right? But in law, in the strict sense, it is not allowed. A landlord cannot use self-help, right? Cannot use self-help to evict a tenant from a property. A landlord cannot lock your door, right? A landlord cannot cut off lights or other utilities you're using within a premises, right? Just in a bid to evict you from that property. A landlord cannot even go as far as removing the roof, right, of the premises just to evict you. All these are illegal acts in law, right? Remember, we talked about the notices that has to be given by a landlord. Now, upon the expiration of those notices, a landlord is supposed to go a step further to serve on the tenant what is known in law as a 7 days notice of the owner's intention to apply to the court to recover possession of the premises. That 7 days notice, upon the expiration of that 7 days notice, the landlord is then required in law to file a claim for the recovery of that particular premises. So in law, the landlord cannot use any self-help means whatsoever to evict a tenant from a property. No, the landlord cannot. So I would need to elaborate again. The landlord cannot lock your doors. The landlord cannot use what's it called, agents or police officers on his own to put you out, cannot cut off your utilities, light, water, and so on and so forth. The landlord cannot remove your roof just in a bid to evict you, and so on and so forth. Now, in law, all these are illegal acts. And what can you do? Even if you're owing rent, you can actually apply to the court to restrain the landlord from doing that. Yes. However, we have instances in Nigeria where most of the courts, come into the arena to want to try to sort out the issues and so on and so forth. But you can actually restrain your landlord from carrying out any of those acts, right? You can even bring, charges, criminal charges against the landlord. Now, let me paint a scenario, right? Some persons have actually, laid false allegations against their landlords, for using self-help. So you can imagine you're not around, your landlord has been demanding his rent and you've not been able to pay, and then your landlord goes into the premises, take your things out and stuff like that. That is even trespass in the first instance. Now, some tenants have gone ahead to lay false allegation on the landlord for doing that, because they will tell you, I have certain valuable properties in the premises, which at the end of the day, I have not been able to see after you forcefully took my things out. So in order to avoid all these mess and all that, it is imperative that landlord must, as a matter of necessity, right, go through the proper channel. It might take long, and sometimes the landlords are at the receiving end because of some dubious tenants and so on and so forth. But it is imperative, that you go through the proper channel of the law to lawfully evict a tenant out of your property. So don't forget to like, subscribe, share our contents, comments, across all our social media handles. See you in our next video.